Hello everyone, welcome to the May Podcast from Us here at Pass the Controller. I'm joined by James.
Good evening.
I'm joined by Sam.
Hiya.
I'm joined by Rob.
Hello there.
And joined by Liam.
Hello.
Awesome. So, fortunately, Chris couldn't be with us today because he's not very well, but we wish him all the best and for a full and speedy recovery. So today's podcast, we're going to be talking about the E3 conference, more specifically Project Scorpio. So yeah, I've got some specs here. This is taken from Polygon. Originally, Digital Foundry were allowed access into the specs. So obviously, the PlayStation Pro is going to be up against the Scorpio. But we've got the CPU of the Scorpio is going to be 2.3 gigahertz as opposed to the PlayStation 4 Pro, which is 2.1 gigahertz. We'll talk about price as well. So it's retailing at a predicted $499 US, as opposed, I think that's in pounds, that's £389, I think, if I'm correct in saying that. So guys, what are your initial thoughts on Scorpio? Because I feel like we haven't really touched upon this very much.
Well, I think as a console, it's had kind of plenty of talk around it. There was plenty of rumors, etc., before E3 last year about where they're going to reveal it. Was there going to be two? Was there going to be a new disk driveless Xbox One and then a new console and all this sort of stuff? And in the end, they just gave us this kind of very curated, very, very careful intro video, which kind of was all very very shadowy and very unclear what it would look like, and there was lots of motherboards and chips and what have you. And I think since then, obviously, as you say, the Digital Foundry reveal, as it were, the second of the reveals so far, was quite interesting because obviously it wasn't from an official Microsoft outlet. It wasn't like it was just dumped on the Xbox YouTube channel or something. It was, it came down to a third party, and that's quite a bold move. You have to feel quite confident about what you're potentially putting out there to do that. So I think that from that point of view, that certainly impressed me.
What about the console itself, Jam? Do you think you'll be picking it up?
From my point of view, as soon as the idea of it was come across, I knew that it would be my next console, purely because I'm very bought into the Xbox ecosystem, not just because of the kind of the experiential side of it, which I'm very familiar with in terms of Microsoft, but mostly the fact that I have a lot of people, such as all of the lovely people whose voices you can hear, but many others who I tend to play games with online, and that's that ecosystem and that kind of social side of it is the reason that it kind of keeps on pulling me back. Of course, now everyone's going to say they're not going to get one, so I'm going to be left by myself playing by myself, and and then that will be completely indeed.
That won't be the case though, will it? Because it's the whole new mid-generation refresh thing. It's both consoles play the same games, so whether people upgrade or not, you'll be playing the same games, just in different terms.
Hopefully that is the case. Well, that's certainly what's been preached and what's been promised, as it were. I mean, Phil Spencer, head of Xbox, has plenty of times said that no one's going to be left behind by this new release, and you're inclined to believe him from a that's what they're intending to do point of view. But what will the reality be like? We'll just have to wait and see.
And are you still as attracted to it? Bearing in mind, I don't think you have a 4K TV, do you? With cost of a 4K TV and things on top, does that not do anything to put you off? Are you still?
Well, I actually, breaking news. I actually picked up a 4K TV relatively recently on account of partly the fact that this would be on the horizon later in the year. I didn't want to have to spend like a jillion pounds all at once. So I have taken the plunge into the 4K world, and it is beautiful.
There you go.
But it's different. But I mean, if I was having to make difficult choices about funds, then yeah, that would definitely be a concern for me in terms of getting the most out of that investment, because like you say, if you're buying a console which is specifically made for 4K and preaches about the only place where you can experience true 4K gaming, blah blah blah, all that stuff. If you didn't have a 4K TV, then you'd immediately be selling yourself short of what you could expect from it. So,
what about you, Rob? Is it something that you're interested in?
For me, I just, if it was a new console, then it would be a bit more appealing. But just a generation refresh. I mean, everything I've read about the PS4 Pro is that a lot of the games don't run that well, actually run better on the original PS4, which just seems mad for starters. And like Jams just said, the cost of a new TV, that's a lot of money. So for me, I'll probably be out, honestly, at the beginning. I'm really happy with the Xbox One. That does everything that I need it to. I'm not really a graphics whore, I suppose is the term. If I was, I'd get a PC. So for me, I'll probably skip it, honestly.
Well, I want to see. I'm not going to get a 4K TV, so the whole 4K thing isn't really a selling point for me. I just want to see maybe like a side-by-side comparison of how games will look from Xbox One and on Xbox Scorpio. As if there's going to be added features, like is it just going to look and run better? That's what I'm mainly interested in, because I know Shadow of War is I think that's the only one so far announced so far coming to Project Scorpio, when they say like it's coming out in August.
Mass Effect Andromeda, I think, is going to get a date as well. Not confirmed.
But yeah, I'd just like to see if there's any massive differences, because that would probably, if there is, then yeah, it might be worth getting one. But I've only had my Xbox One a couple of years. It's probably going to come out around winter time, so it'll be about 2 years by then. So, and if it's all going to be forward and backwards compatible, then I just want to see if there's a big difference, see if it's worth making the mid-generation refresh for me.
As with every console release day one, it doesn't really matter to me, partly because I work from home and from my consoles, so having more means more testing work as well. I can take more review copies for all the different platforms. But yeah, so I default to yes day one, but I would be interested anyway. So I have a 4K TV. I don't want to say I'm a graphics whore. I like nice graphics, but obviously the gameplay is more important. But again, I do like nice graphics, so that is something that appeals to me.
I think when they do announce it, which they do, like the actual proper legitimate reveal of Project Scorpio, they need some hella good games to go with it. Like we need to see like Crackdown 3 or some sort of release titles to go with it.
What has happened to that one?
Yeah, it's a good question, to be honest. No idea.
That was one of the ones that I think I saw whatever E3 it was and was like, oh yeah, I might get an Xbox now. That looks fun.
Hopefully,
it's
then.
kind of
I think it's
gone
probably
underground, isn't it?
It'll be the cloud computing stuff that's giving them issues with it, I think. So it's the cloud is supposed to be running the destruction.
I pre-ordered that game about a year and a half ago, I think. Genuinely, it's the oldest
Hasn't been
thing in my
cancelled yet.
Amazon queue.
Do you know, I think a Forza game as well would be quite good for Xbox, possibly.
That's got to be.
I think that's
given.
guaranteed. And probably a
Yeah.
Scorpio launch title will be Forza 7, guaranteed.
Just going back quickly to the price. So like I said, so it would be retailing for, it's predicted $499 US or £389 for us here in the UK.
Well, let's be honest, that's going to be $499 UK.
I was going to say my prediction would be $499 UK.
More than that, I would be pretty unhappy with, just from a point of view I bought the Switch earlier in the year, of course, and spent, with all the bells and whistles, over 300 on that. So to spend more than another 200 on admittedly a very different machine, but to be able to buy almost two Switches for one console is insane. in itself in a way, as much as they are obviously, as I say, very, very different.
But then, if it's a genre refresh, a console refresh rather, don't you think that's the whole point to price it high, because they're not going to sell as many, so they want to maximize
Yeah.
the dollary dues that they make on it.
And let's face it,
Dollary
it's
dues.
all about the dollar.
It's the technical term.
Well, let's see. The Scorpio is going to be less popular than the base Xbox One. It's always the case. Say, the Pro sells less than the PlayStation 4 Slim, just because, even though I think that's a very good deal, it's only £100 more, but people just don't want to spend £100.
And I think particularly with all of the political unrest and everyone in a kind of doom and gloom with the world situation, people are going to be a lot more careful with how they invest their money. And okay, fair enough, it'll be Christmas by then, and you're inclined to be a little bit more easy with the wallet. But even so, yeah, I think that those sort of £50, £100 differences will make a big difference in terms of the overall take up from day one. I think. I mean, but I'd agree that the games are what's going to make or break that from that point of view. I mean, the Switch got away with it in such a Nintendo fashion by just like hammering us with one game being amazing, and then that seemingly being enough to kind of make what they needed. But I think Microsoft, they don't have that kind of love that Nintendo does, no matter how die hard a Halo fan or whoever you are.
See, I think Microsoft will deliver on the games come the launch of the Scorpio. Do you remember at the end of 360's life cycle?
I think they need to, don't they?
At the end of the 360's life cycle, no exclusives were coming up, and it was basically mirroring exactly what is happening now. And everyone will Xbox is dead. There's no exclusives. There's no reason to have a 360. But then, come the launch of them on the PS4, the Xbox One, in my opinion at least, had a much better and much more on offer, a much wider launch catalogue than the PS4 did. And I think that's going to be the case again. PlayStation has consistently been delivering good exclusives. Microsoft has had very, very little by comparison, admittedly. But I think come the launch of the Scorpio, that's when they'll blow their load, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think we'll be talking about PlayStation in just a bit, but yeah, I absolutely agree, Sam. Just to preface it really quickly, that's the reason why I've been playing PlayStation is purely for the exclusives. I don't have little to criticize about the Xbox console itself, but the games, the catalogue of games have just been extremely disappointing for a couple of years for me now, and I think that's one of the main reasons why I have sort of steered towards PlayStation. We'll talk about VR possibility. Do you think, given obviously Project Scorpio, they're going to be running with this as their main
I think
topic?
If you'd asked me maybe a year ago about that very same question, I'd have been like, yeah, definitely Oculus compatibility. They're going to be all in. There'll be a bundle for both things. It'll be like £1,000 or whatever. But I think the perception, and certainly some of the editorial on the subject from people who know what they're talking about, has certainly felt like the two companies are kind of pulling away from each other again after being so, with that Minecraft HoloLens demo from a VR point of view, plus Microsoft stuff turning up in an Oculus presentation and stuff like that. VR was so high profile, but now I think the hype side of it has died down, and we've got a bit more to the reality. I mean, I think you've said many times, Sam, about how there are some really solid, consistent releases of titles coming out. Admittedly, more so on PSVR and stuff in terms of what you've experienced, but the kind of the reality of that has all kind of set in now, more so than the kind of over promising and under delivering as we might have seen at launch.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that the hype has sort of died down, but I think if you owned VR like I do, and every time I go on the PS4, I make a point of checking the list of VR games, and I do that because there's a lot of smaller stuff that doesn't get publicized and I've never even heard of that I'll see on there, and it looks cool. But every time I go on there is new stuff, and every time I look stuff up, that is on there, generally there's at least something that has good reviews, is a solid game. So it's not a case of VR doesn't have a good library, because it does, and it's constantly growing, and it has a number of killer apps now. Like, VR is legitimately good. It's not, in the same conversation as something like Connect.
Yeah.
It's not. It's already better than that. But I do think, because the hype's sort of dying down, even though I don't think that's justified, because they are delivering on the games front, which is the important thing. I'm kind of with you now that I think Microsoft might be a little bit tentative about including it with Scorpio, which is unfortunate.
I think they will. If there's anything like Connect, I think they might bundle some sort of thing in there. I don't know. It's difficult to tell at this point. If they're smart, I think they'll just lead with Scorpio and the games. But VR, it's how it's going to sort of weave its way into the VR market, because it does have PSVR and of course the HTC Vive to compete with. I don't know whether that'll be a strategic move from them. Liam, what do you think about VR? Are you much of a VR advocate, or is it something that doesn't really interest you?
I've only experienced it twice, but it was awesome. And if I had a gaming PC, I would have gone out and bought a Vive straight away after trying it. It was that good. I had that much fun with it. So I'm hoping that they do something with VR, but because realistically, PSVR was my easiest way into VR on a console, but then it'd mean picking up a PlayStation, and then the cost adds up. So I mean, if there's something coming with it, then yeah, I'll be happy, because I'm like James. I've got my whole little Microsoft world set up of Xbox friends and things, so I don't really want to go having to change consoles just to experience VR. So if they go for it, I'll be happy with it. I think it would be cool. I've heard good things about the Star Wars Battlefront VR X-Wing mission, and I'm very excited about Battlefront 2. So if there's going to be more things for that, I'd be happy to experience it on
Battlefront 2
Xbox.
does have VR integration.
It's even more incentive.
It's already been confirmed.
Then yes, if they do VR, I will be getting it. Yeah, that's sold, and I'll need to get a Scorpio now. So yeah.
On that topic, I thought it'd be interesting to add. So this was from a topic, an outlet I found from Game Rant, or an outlet called Game Rant, and they were talking about the possibility of cross-platforming of gaming. I don't know whether this is anything that would interest you guys, but they managed to get a statement. This is Game Rant. They managed to get a statement from Sony. I think it's PSN Guardians. It says, so quote, PlayStation have been supporting cross-platform play between PC. We would be happy to have the conversation with any publishers or developers who are interested in cross-platform play. To me, this sounds friggin' awesome. I would love the chance to be able to play. I've got a lot of friends on who play predominantly Xbox that don't play on PlayStation. To be able to have the opportunity to play together on different consoles it's just so exciting. And I don't know what you guys think about it. What are your thoughts on the potential?
Microsoft have said the same. I don't know why it's not already happening. If Sony and Microsoft have said that they're happy to do it, get it done. But most of my friends are on Xbox. When I'm on PlayStation, it's a very lone place. I basically go there to play the single player exclusives, and then all my friends and the community side of it is on the Xbox.
Yeah.
So to me, it wouldn't make much of a difference because I don't use it. But obviously, for those who would, yeah, it's a big deal. It's something that I think should happen.
Yeah.
You know, Sam, you and Gabriella should game together, because it sounds like it's just, it's just a match waiting to happen.
I do get very competitive, so beware. No, I'm joking.
Oh, we've also won a multiplayer. Everyone's been there.
Never.
But yeah, so from a cross compatibility point of view, I mean, I think what's interesting about that is that I'm totally for it as well. I love any sort of all the way back, not cross platforms, but all the way back to secondary school and going around people's houses with your literal computers, not even laptops, and setting up LAN parties to play like Total Annihilation and other stuff in like 4 to 8 player in a room is insane. but that sort of kind of collaborative play from all different setups of computer, and someone had like a tiny netbook and was playing it. It's mad. But you know, all that sort of stuff is great. I think the best example of where both companies, as you say, Sam, missed the boat with this one was probably Rocket League, because that was a pretty high profile game in terms of it blew up. It was all over Twitch, all over everything for a good old while. I'm sure it's still big now, but I mean the hype's not so much there.
It still is.
And
have you ever looked on the store page on the Xbox? Look at paid games, and it's Rocket League is like number one or close all the time.
Yeah, so I mean, I've never been kind of massively into the kind of the viewing side of it, but the fact is that the developers said that it was absolutely possible for cross-platform play to happen, but they just needed Sony to okay it, and they never did. So how true that is from a literal flick a switch and it's magically works point of view, we'll never really know. But I think the reality is, from a business point of view, what does it gain each company, to have that avenue? Because it's really like, if you think about it in terms of a chess game, it's as if you're both leading with a bishop or something, some kind of mid-level piece, and then both of them get taken at the same time, and you're back to where you started. So from that point of view, what's to incentivize you to put that investment and that time in to get it right? Because then as soon as it goes down, the finger pointing will begin, and you'll be like, oh no, well, PlayStation Network let us down, says Xbox, or Xbox Live let us down.
Yeah, I also think there's a certain element that PlayStation and Xbox do have a sort of identity as well, and I don't know whether sharing that would be good to them.
You're right, because PlayStation's for the players.
For the players.
Suggesting that no other platforms are for the players. Only Sony.
What is Xbox for? Have we ever discovered that?
For jumping ahead, Rob.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Jump in.
That's why I
bought
jump
it.
ahead.
That was my favorite bit of the marketing. The fact that was such a subtle change. That they haven't massively gone in for that tagline this time around as much as they did for jump in back in those days. But the fact that subtle change made such a, it warmed my heart. It did.
You also have the potential issues of in the game chat, like fanboy wars, basically.
Yeah.
I'm playing on Xbox, I'm playing on PlayStation, and I don't want to be on your team. What are you doing on that console? And people are
very them and us.
So, yeah.
True. Or it could do the complete opposite, which I don't think will happen. Is it will join us in unity, and we'll all get on.
Bring everyone together.
And we'll share pizza and beer together.
Holy mackerel.
What on earth have you been smoking?
It'd be cool.
If we see it happen, it will be because some sort of very, very small scale indie developer somehow made it work. They connected the dots in some way, and
I thought this had
and it was
already
perceived as such a risk.
I thought this has already happened with there was a game that kind of looked like original Doom and like the Turok N64 games, but it was like a level builder that was on the PS4 and the Xbox One
Possibly.
and the PC, and I'm sure
Yeah,
that
possibly,
was,
but not large scale.
that was no, I mean obviously it was tiny, but yeah.
Was that if it was a level builder, was that just that you could play levels from any platform on any platform, or could you actually physically play together?
I think you could physically play together as well.
Awesome.
Oh, right, okay.
I can't remember what it was called though. It will come to me, I'm sure.
We'll have to...
Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, let us know. Cool. Swiftly moving on to PlayStation. They've known about Project Scorpio now. I don't know whether they're in the drawing board comprising ideas of how to counteract this. I think they can play it one or two ways at E3. I think they can be technically hiding in the bushes, waiting for Xbox to make their move, and then they plan around that. Or they alternatively could have a plan set in place, whether that is more exclusive games or whether that is a new console, which I highly doubt. I think if they did pull out a new console, I think it'd just be ridiculous, to be honest. It'd just be like throwing their toys out of the pram. Like, well, if Xbox are releasing a new console, then we should as well. But yeah, what do you guys think? How do you think Sony are going to react to Project Scorpio? Because they've got to be like battening down the hatches now. They've got to be preparing for this, because this has the potential to, sink the PlayStation Pro, like straight on.
Isn't there already rumors that PlayStation 5 is coming next year? I've seen those knocking around.
Yeah,
there are, but I think it's one source who he's been labeled in the past, but it's just his prediction. I don't even think he has evidence. It's just his business prediction. It would make sound business sense, but
okay.
I don't know that it would. They've got the biggest install base of the 3 consoles out at the moment. They don't want to throw that away.
I think
relatively
from
in the console's life cycle and just after the refresh with the Pro.
I think from Sony's point of view, they had a really, really strong E3 last year. I think we can all agree. They had
pulled
some,
out of the bag.
Kojima's game Death Stranding alone is exactly the sort of game. Well, I say game. It's not even a game at the moment. It's videos. We haven't seen any game, but it's exactly the sort of inspirational idea which gets people talking. It gets people excited and interested in wanting to be part of that experience. And like I say, we don't even know what that is yet. We don't know if it's a like Metal Gear Solid-esque game, or it could be something completely different. I mean, let's be honest, it's going to be somewhat similar because this is Kojima we're talking about. But that plus, some other stuff that they've already revealed, like Days Gone and Gone.
There was a lot of new
God
stuff
of War and stuff like that. Yeah,
that was revealed there. I don't think those
Shenmue.
were already revealed.
Shenmue.
Yeah, Shenmue.
Who could forget Shenmue?
Was that the year before? Or was that?
Yeah, that
gone?
was about 20 years ago.
The one just gone. One was like the God of War reveal. I think Days Gone was revealed.
Yeah,
I think that's the reveal there.
definitely those.
Spider-Man,
those two.
Spider-Man Insomniac game, Death Stranding.
I mean, so from that point of view, they've got that strong slate. That all of those will be coming back for E3
they've got
this
the
year
games.
for sure.
They've got the games to lean on, haven't they?
They've got that. The question will be from PlayStation. Well, but from PlayStation fans, I imagine they'll be like, "Yeah, we've got all these good games coming. I've already got my Pro. I'm fine." They can have their love in with Xbox One and Scorpio playing together and whatever else they want to do. Fine, see if I care. I think it'll be next year that people will start to be asking the questions if Scorpio's still got a lot of momentum after Christmas in terms of releases, and the Sony slate starts to dry up again. But I don't think it will. I really think that how aggressive Sony have been in their release schedule, and particularly investing in new IP or in some cases old IP, how consistently that they've been doing that. I think it'll be likely that we'll see, they'll have some sort of trump card for the end. No, but there'll be a mic drop moment at the end for sure, because they always do that, and there'll probably be 2 or 3 other titles which are new, which are actually substantial inverted commas. I mean, you get some, particularly from Xbox, or even if you think about Ubisoft's show last year when Steep was like their biggest reveal, and you're like, okay,
that was laughable.
Wasn't expecting that one.
I'll be honest.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's the thing. So that's the thing that Sony know how to release games in the sense that they build the story around them, not from a narrative sense, but the story as in the marketing, the hype, the entire experience of coming up to that release and actually buying it. Whereas on Xbox, more often than not, I mean, how many times have they announced Cuphead now as part of it at Xbox and it's still not out? How many times?
Where's Crackdown 3?
How many times they talk about Crackdown? Exactly. I mean, they sell themselves short because they don't deliver. So that's why I think, like Sam said earlier as well, I think they will deliver this time in terms of the Scorpio release and the release window, if you want to use that that term, because they've heard that feedback loud and clear. And Phil Spencer is, very much on board from day one with what they're doing with Scorpio, and I think he's been a terrific influence in that company. And I think some of the biggest things that we've seen in the last 2 to 3 years, i.e. the second half of what has been the Xbox One's lifetime, I think have been far more positive. I think it's just a shame that he hasn't had the software lineup to back him up until now, but hopefully some of these promises will come to pass.
Mm-hmm. Rob, have you got any thoughts on the PlayStation conference, the potential of the E3 conference?
Oh, you've got a PlayStation now, haven't you, Rob?
I
You'll
have.
be invested in.
I recently got one. I got it. The only reason I got it really is for The Last of Us 2. I feel like I've played. I feel like I've played a lot of the PlayStation games already on the PS3, and they haven't really changed at all. They're still the same. It's just like a slightly different story, which is nice, but it's not really worth buying a whole new console, in my opinion. Which is the whole reason I bought the Xbox, to be honest, because it was something new for me and different.
But The Last Guardian, Rob, think of the fun you could have playing with a crazy chimera dog cat thing.
Oh man, that looked boring.
A badly behaved one as well.
It looks boring.
Badly behaved.
Yeah, I gave it a 9 out of 10 on the review.
I'll have
There's
to
plenty of
trust your
flaws I can
opinion,
talk
but
about.
then I played Ico, and I didn't really like that either. So
True. Yeah,
it
if
was
you
the
didn't like Ico,
the same guys. So yeah, hopefully they'll have some other cool stuff to show. I'm sure they will. It's Sony, isn't it? So fingers crossed. But for me, it's going to be The Last of Us 2, Shenmue, and then other cool, hopefully some nice Sega stuff, some of the more obscure Sega stuff. So I know there's another Valkyria game coming out, I believe, in the summer. So hopefully there'll be something about that, and maybe some Yakuza.
That'd be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm playing, or looking to play anyway on there. So.
Yeah, I think it'll be really good to see some Last of Us 2 gameplay. I'm praying it'd be so freaking if they end on it. I'm just visualizing it now, like the curtains closing if they have that big orchestral sort of setup like they did last year. Oh, just so good.
Well, they could probably get away with having a really, really shite conference, but if they end with that, instantly everybody will be like, "Oh, they won E3. Oh, they won E3." So I think that's a given, isn't it? That we're going to see that. Hopefully they'll lead on from that little teaser video of Ellie playing acoustic guitar and she'll be smashing it over somebody's head instead. That'd be nice.
Be a nice
I'll see.
to end it.
See, I'm more excited for God of War and Spider-Man.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think Sony probably have the strongest conference. You asked sort of leading into this segment, will they have a strict plan, or will it be reactionary based on Microsoft showing? And I think the answer is the same as every year, a bit of both. You don't produce a show as good as the last year without it being planned meticulously. But then, as we've seen, like with the, this is how you share games on PS4 and stuff, that they do react to Microsoft. And again, I think it'll be a bit of both. Maybe they'll play down the Scorpio specs and show how the Pro can get you sort of relatively close but much cheaper. But again, it won't all be that. They won't significantly change the show based on that, because they have a strong footing basically anyway on their own.
I mean, they've bought it with the consistently delivering great gaming experiences. But if they really did miss the mark, then they'd still have plenty to fall back on. It's not like they're suddenly gonna, disappear into the ether or anything like that. They're a serious force in this industry.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to Nintendo. So no conference again this year. There seems to be a habit from Nintendo. They kind of play it low key.
I don't think that's a surprise. I don't think that's a surprise at all. I mean, particularly considering how the Switch launch events have been handled, and like you say, like E3 was last year. I mean, I think last year they hastily shoved in Pokemon Sun and Moon, and some other stuff at the last minute to be like, oh my god, we need to put something apart from Zelda. This isn't going to work. I think it, largely speaking, worked. I didn't really engage with it. If I'm honest, I was more interested in the Switch specific stuff, which we then got later anyway at its own thing. So I don't really mind the little and often approach if that's what Nintendo want to do. I don't think it's necessary for every company to make a massive splash at E3. It's a very particular event, and to be honest, Nintendo are too weird, and they don't really get it. So it's much easier for them to do their own thing and to do it well.
See, I agree. It's not surprising that they've foregone it, but I do think it's disappointing. Obviously, they stopped doing it throughout the life cycle of the Wii U, which to me was kind of an admission of, okay, it's not worth the expense of E3 to promote this sinking ship. So now I think it should be coming back in a big way with the Switch, but they're not. I mean, that to me, that's confidence in your new product.
I mean, even when they were winning in inverted commas with the Wii in terms of sales and all that sort of thing, they never competed. They just fell into that success because they had hit the right note at the right time. I mean, Rob, you'd probably, as our resident expert, you'd probably be more qualified to comment on Nintendo's strategy of late. But I mean, just the way that they conduct themselves, they decide what they want to. They make their own rules, and often they're stupid and they don't make sense. Like, why isn't there voice chat on the Switch right now, or whatever? Why isn't there XYZ number of things? Particularly the things that they end up adding anyway, like the being able to save your credit card details on the eShop, which they've just added like last week, and you're just kind of like, oh, thanks. That should have been there a while back, but fine. I think they're starting to learn those lessons, but it is very slow.
To be honest, I completely agree with Sam. I think it's really, it's not a surprise, but it is really disappointing that it seems like they're trying harder with the Switch, in that they're actually, they've sent consoles out to YouTubers instead of getting them to pull their content or give them royalties for putting it up, which is a change. But I just think, again, what have you got on the Switch?
They're missing an opportunity.
What have you got on the Switch at the moment? You've got Zelda and Mario Kart 8, which are both on the Wii U, and they didn't make that console. Mario Kart 8 didn't make that console sell that well. So I don't know what the Switch figures are in general now. But for me, I think it's going to be the same problems as the Wii U. There'll be maybe 3 or 4 first-party releases, which will be fine if you've got the money for another console. But it's not going to make everybody go out and get one. So I think we've all played Mario Kart before. Hasn't really changed that much. So you don't need to play it again. For me, I'd rather just play Mario Kart N64. That was better than Mario Kart 8, in my opinion, anyway. So,
I'm much better at Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, though. Just to touch on the Switch selling point, particularly compared to the Wii U, I believe off the top of my head that in the first month they were aiming for 2 million consoles shipped, either shipped or sold through, and they smashed through that and got to about 2.4 or so worldwide, or in America, I can't remember. So from the kind of strategy point of view, clearly what they did worked. I mean, Zelda outsold the system itself just on Switch, which is kind of funny in itself. But for Mario Kart, I know that from reading some of the editorial around the release, particularly the comparing the two versions and stuff like that, I think it was about 6.8 million copies sold of Mario Kart 8 proper on the Wii U. So, like you say, Rob, it was a very successful game on that console, but it didn't, force people to buy it. I think the reason is really just the targeting that they've gone for with the kind of form factor of the Switch. It lends itself quite deliberately to that kind of couch co-oping style. And if I'm honest, that's probably from my playing the game up for review and since release, that's probably been the best experience that I've had with it so far, is when I've had more than 4 people, actually way more, in a room, and just passing the controllers around the room as they're as they're finishing races and stuff, and the hollering and the shouting and people getting increasingly drunk, although that's not necessarily necessary for the enjoyment, but nonetheless it's quite amusing. But yeah, I mean that sort of the fact that they've kind of distilled some of it down to its really kind of core best bits. I don't think it's not really as much of an achievement as it would be as if Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U hadn't existed at the end of the day, because it is just an iteration on the same thing. It's not, but you could say the same about almost any Mario Kart game, probably.
I'll be honest, I felt like that when Mario Kart 8 came out and all the reviews were amazing and they were saying it's the best ever. I didn't think it was that great, honestly. I thought Mario Kart 7 was more fun on the 3DS, or I had more fun with it anyway.
Looking at the sales, though, it has outsold Prey, which comes in at number 2, which is pretty interesting statistics.
I don't know. Considering the broad appeal of Mario as a character compared to Prey, I'm not surprised by that, to be honest.
But Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is only on the Switch, though. Prey is on PC, Xbox One, and PS4. That does surprise me.
I mean, to be honest, there are other. I haven't played a lot of them. I confess, but obviously, Snipperclips is not a large game, but it is a good game on the Switch. But there are numerous others which are good. I think, and I've seen increasingly more, as you say, on that kind of more indie end of the spectrum releases coming through, which are good quality, and in this case aren't actually available on 18 other systems like quite a lot of the initial release slate was. To be honest, I think from Nintendo's point of view, it is risky, but it's continuing to pay off. So I don't know why they would change their strategy now from that point of view. I think they've been very upfront about what games are coming out this year, even if ARMS hilariously has still not come out after being slated for release month, which I think is quite funny, considering it looks pretty basic. But I mean, I'm sure it's good. I haven't played it at all, but I just find it I find it funny when you get a group of people saying, well, why would you buy a Switch? There's no games for it. When on the other hand, you've got a game which outsells the system which it's which is sold on. Admittedly, that's because most people don't have a Wii U, so it's the reason to buy a Switch and play it. But yeah, I mean, if you kind of look at it logically, it doesn't really work out, and that's exactly the point that you're getting at, Rob. It doesn't really make sense, but that's Nintendo. They always do stuff, and it just kind of works out.
Yeah, it works out for them, doesn't it? So you can't complain. I just think it would be good for the fans, just to participate in the E3 experience.
If they do their direct presentation, if they do that well, it's usually quite good fun. But then you have to put up with the god-awful treehouse shenanigans afterwards. And it's just like really basic stuff, like the translators taking, you think they just get Bill Trinan and a couple of other guys to come on and talk about it because it's mainly for a Western American market, E3. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So that always kind of is a bit jarring.
A bit off topic, but do any of you guys remember? This is completely unrelated to Nintendo, but I don't know why I thought about it thinking about E3. Do any of you guys remember Peggle 2 announcement? It's like Peggle 2, and then it drops it. So
that was at the EA conference, wasn't it?
I thought you were.
I think so. Yeah. Or it might have been Microsoft. One of the
can't remember. I just remember.
I thought you were going to talk about the Nintendo Muppets. I thought that was a particularly Nintendo brand of Nintendo when we had Nintendo Muppets and Reggie and all of those guys as Muppets.
I didn't remember that.
That was a thing.
That was a thing.
It was the Direct a
Yeah.
couple of years ago, I think.
Yeah, 2
it
years
was
ago.
when
'cause,
I think it announced
Iwata
Star
was on
Fox
it.
on the Wii U and stuff.
I don't
Yes,
remember
you're
that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they turned into the Star Fox characters after a while as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, look it up. It's definitely an experience. I mean, it's definitely memorable.
Mm.
I seem to remember referencing it last time we did the podcast after E3, and saying how it was particularly memorable compared to what they've done for the reasons that you've just said, particularly the translators, but other stuff.
I love those bizarre moments.
But
though.
yeah, well, that's it, and that's the kind of the other end of the spectrum to Sony, in the sense that Sony make experiences which are, for the players, we're out and out, we're the best, we're the strongest, we're the most powerful, we're whatever. Nintendo go just so left field with what they do that sometimes it just really hits the mark. It just, some stuff sticks with people because people can identify with that weirdness for whatever reason. And I think that's what's kind of endearing about them as a company, even if they do feel like a kind of hapless cousin at times. You're just kind of like, oh, hurry up, move your way into the 21st century and embrace these things that are really obvious, like, basic things which gamers expect these days. And no, I don't want to save a video of a battle I just had on Pokemon where I died. No, I'm fine. But you still ask me every time anyway. This sort of thing. It's just, I don't know. It's like trying to explain an elastic band wrapped in an enigma. It's just bizarre.
I don't think I'm going to lose interest in the Switch. I actually quite like what it is, and I think I'm going to get Mario Kart soon. I think there's good things to come for it. I'm hoping we'll hear something about GameCube Virtual Console soon, because that would be awesome. I have an SD card I bought waiting for that news. So
that would be a very smart move, but and that's what makes me think that Nintendo won't do it until
yeah.
ages away from now. I mean, from my point of view, I bought and rebought some stuff on Wii Virtual Console, and I would probably buy stuff like, I don't know, Pikmin 2 or whatever. I mean, or Pikmin 3 even. I forget which ones came out on the Wii U. But I would rebuy some of the Wii U era stuff that I never got around to because I didn't have that console, and I probably would rebuy some stuff from GameCube era. I mean, Star Fox Adventures was a great game, but I don't imagine that Nintendo will do that until they absolutely feel like they have to, or feel like they're good and ready to. They'll just kind of chuck it out there, and like they did with the 2DS the other week.
With their new folding design.
Well, they decided they hadn't released anything with a D and an S in the title for a while, so they thought they'd just do it. I believe
that in the same week, the NES Mini that everyone is desperate for, they announced they don't have the resources to keep making, but instead, here is another DS. That 10th DS they need. Here you go, have that instead of the NES Mini that you want.
Those kids that bought the original 2DS are getting older. They need a folding one now.
Yeah.
They know how to fleece the parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they need to put that in their briefcases that they take to school for safekeeping. But I mean, that said, though, I mean, I think for all of the bashing of Nintendo aside, all of the reviews where they've kind of acknowledged that ridiculousness, and then said, but on the other hand, it is the best 3DS, 2DS, 3DS, whatever that they've ever done, because it doesn't worry about the 3DS gimmick, the 3D gimmick, and it is otherwise, fast and responsive and all that other stuff. And at the end of the day, it is a supporting element to the culture that they are trying to continue to nurture with the Switch. Because admittedly, some people will be wanting to play the Switch mostly at home, like Sam was saying when we were first talking about this back at the beginning of the year. But I've definitely played it on the go plenty of times, and got a lot out of it. And I think I still play my 3DS now, partly because of the games, Pokemon and stuff like that. But they're basically breeding the next generation of Nintendo fans who, when they become a bit older, so that they can continue building that audience as much as possible.
I think this is going to be a handheld mainly for me. I did think it would be a home console first and foremost, but I just like having it in my hands and playing it wherever in the house. I'm looking at getting a case now, and also I docked it the other day, and it was really loud, like surprisingly loud, and gets really hot inside the dock. So I was a bit worried because I've heard those horror stories of the Switch warping and things like that.
See, handheld
So, I think I'm going to stick to it as a handheld.
Handheld console wise, I'm happy with my PS Vita, to be honest. I purchased a PS Vita not so long ago, and I love it.
You are the only person who bought a PS Vita this year.
And do you know what? I don't even regret it. I regret purchasing the PSVR more than I do my Vita.
Well, at the end of the day, you just know it's not for you, don't you? That's what it is. At the end of the day, you intrigued by something, but you need it to fit into your routine. I think that's the biggest issue, and I think that's why Nintendo is in such a strong position now, because being handheld is actually really, really strong. In terms of getting into people's routine. Obviously handheld gaming from a mobile point of view has been, increasingly exploding. I mean, people, no one talks about Candy Crush anymore, but it still makes £1 jillion a day. Yeah. So convenience is so massive. If you think about anything that you do in your life, which is outside your, especially stuff which is outside your routine, you go for the most convenient option. It's not even necessarily the cheapest.
Right, bringing this all back to the topic of E3. So we'll just run through a summary of our predictions. So Xbox, we know they're going to lead with Project Scorpio. That's a given. Hopefully they'll have some nice games to go with it as well, some exclusives. Hopefully you'll get to see more on Crackdown 3. And pretty much like Sam said, the possibility of a new Forza game is very likely.
Any guesses about what they're going to call the Xbox?
Xbox. I think just Xbox.
Maybe.
And then one will be out, because that will be, there's no generations. It's a generationless thing. It's just Xbox.
Yeah,
And
they might. That's a good
iterate
call.
on the
Actually, they might do an Apple and call it the new Xbox, and then it'll be the new Xbox for a bit.
Yeah. So PlayStation, again, they're pretty comfortable, similar to Nintendo. So I think I'm not too sure whether they will lead with a new console. I don't think that's particularly likely, but like we discussed, they're comfortable in their games. If they just carry on creating those good games, then I think they're
maybe there'll be a new Vita for you.
Safe. And finally, Nintendo, obviously no conference, but feel like again, like PlayStation, they're comfortable, so they don't particularly need
doing their own thing.
Need a lavish show. Yeah, they're doing their thing, and that thing is working for them. So, and they're making lots of dollar. So we hope you've enjoyed this podcast. We're going to wrap things up here. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to check out our site for Sam's weekly giveaway. I believe this week is The Police that Liam reviewed. So go check that out. But until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.
Bye. Bye. You all came in late.
Oh my god.